Si, Monsieur.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I return to the theme of disappointment. When the Commission announced the budget on the 3rd of May, there was great fanfare for the increases in Framework 9 Horizon Europe and in the Erasmus programme. And I would welcome, because I've argued for increases in these programmes since I took up this mandate, I would welcome those increases, of course. But you have to say that if the Commission knew the general frame of these increases in January, then you have to, because it's not really that long, 4 months in a preparation of a 7-year budget. If they knew the general frame of those increases, because they must have had some idea, then why was the President of the Commission going around talking about a tripling of these programmes? Why was Commissioner Oettinger coming to the Budget Committee and talking about doubling these programmes when Framework 9 increases in the event by 50%, assuming we can actually believe what's in the figures? Now, where I come from, which is a simple world, this is exceptionally bad expectation management in any degree. So, why do it? Now, also in my simple world, it's been a good 2 years since the United Kingdom made their very foolish decision to leave this union. But that's really quite a lot of time to look at the detail of what the implications are for the next 7-year budget. So again, it's reasonable to assume that we're going to sit here as politicians and ask these questions. So I don't believe it's viable for the Commission to say, oh, well, it's all very difficult. We really didn't think any of this was going to happen. So we've come with this kind of rough set of figures now and so on. Because I think that's naive, and you have to say that we're either being told a tale here, or there is some kind of, it's either incompetence or it's hiding something, and I think that's a great shame. In other areas, I think there are particular disappointments. I think the limitations in youth funding that are set out in this are greatly disappointing. There seems to be an absence, at least I can't find it, of any mention of a child guarantee, which is a programme that was certainly in the Parliament resolution. I think that's a great shame. There's also an absence of a humane transition fund from coal, which again I think is a great shame, because if we're serious about our climate commitments, then we should be serious and specific about how some of these transitions are going to come about. And again, if you want a model of how not to do it, you've only got to look at how the UK moved away from coal, and it will tell you that things like a humane transition fund are absolutely essential. Again, in these documents, and it's a nicely produced little pack, but in these documents, I find an absence of rationale for some of these decisions. When the Parliament expressed the need for a 30% level of mainstreaming of climate funding to meet our Paris Agreement commitments, we end up with a 25% commitment. The hearing at the last meeting, Mr. President, I'm sure you're aware, cast some doubt on the real level of achievement of the commitments we currently have, and we certainly need to raise our game. But what is the rationale for 25% rather than the 30% that the Parliament talked about? And again, in the Life Fund, a welcome increase, but nothing like what is needed in the only area that is totally dedicated to climate action. So I think there are reasons for disappointment here, and I think that we're going to need to do a great deal more work before we get to a conclusion. And I will finish on one point about the implications of Brexit. We've talked about the need to look at the figures. I believe, and I think that it will emerge in the months to come, that the UK will end up contributing to programmes that it expresses a desire to be in. Mr. Chairman, I did take up your suggestion and ask write to the UK Minister seeking clarity on involvement in Erasmus, it won't surprise you to know that I'm yet to receive a reply of any sort, let alone clarity, but hey, you know, we live in hope. But the UK will end up making contributions to the next budget, and I suspect they'll be a great deal greater than the UK government is prepared to admit at the moment. I don't know where the contributions from Norway at present, for example, go, but I don't think it will aid the clarity of this budget in the long term if the UK's contributions, which are likely to be on a much greater scale than that, are not contributions that actually come into the European budget and present with transparency what the UK will get from its money and also the benefit that the rest of Europe will take from that involvement. So I put that down as a mark. I thank you for indulging my lengthy contribution.
Merci.
Thank you.